Today we're going to be painting snow using some fun and easy techniques, and hope you guys enjoy this as part of the water series. We have one more to do after this, but this is the snow and a pretty purple sky. Okay, we're going to be starting off with a really light sketch of basically where everything is going to be. I'm using this sketch strictly for an outline, just so I know where to place things. I don't overpaint stuff. It's a pretty easy layout, so you can almost do this freehand without having to sketch it out. But I just felt it was a little bit better just knowing that I was going to have this in the right place. And I really wanted my fence post to be kind of almost central to the painting, and you can see the painting as a reference. I'm sketching out this fence post, and then I'm just going to do kind of the light outline of the snowbanks, the posts. I'm going to use a ruler just to make sure my fence posts are perpendicular to the bottom of the paper. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I have learned the hard way that one of the things that I do is draw crooked lines. Because the way I'm sitting there, from where I'm sitting, it looks straight, and then I paint, and then I'm done, and I look at my painting, and everything is off perspective. So just take the ruler just to make the fence post straight up and down, and technically, even if they were crooked, I mean, it just depends on your perspective. That could actually be accurate, but I just wanted it to be straight up and down. So all I did was just use the ruler to draw my first line or two, and then I used those lines to use as reference to keep them parallel to each other. And then, of course, as it goes off into the distance, the fence posts look closer to each other, and the top and bottom wood of the fence, I keep saying post, it's not the fence, it's just or not the post, just the fence. They get closer and closer to each other to give you that illusion of going off into the distance. And then right now I'm just kind of drawing that rough outline of the mountains in the background, doing a couple of different snow slopes, and then kind of layers of mountains. And I'm going to have a couple of the bigger pine trees towards the foreground. And then I'm going to paint in the rest. So like I said, this is really more of a guideline to just give me an idea of where everything is. So if you see me doing my pet portraits, same thing. It's just really, I go as little on the drawing as possible, little to nothing, to give myself that reference. And I know a lot of people who do watercolor or art in general, they'll do almost a full-on sketch drawing. I'm not a good drawer. That's not even easy for me to say. I can't even say it. I'm not good at drawing. I can do the painting. The drawing has been a very, very learned skill. And I think if you struggle with drawing like I did, then a trick is to start tracing a lot. And if you start tracing a lot, you start to just kind of habitually understand how things work. So I did a wet on wet for the background. I started with the lower part of the horizon, and as you can see, I'm doing a pinkish color sky. It's going to be pinkish, purplish color sky. And this painting, it's snow, so you're going to have a lot of the pinks and the blues and the purples in there. And I'm kind of going over where the mountain, or not over, I'm following the line of the mountain. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to sketch it out too, because I'm using such a light wash. I knew that I couldn't layer this like I do with other things. Like when I do my black silhouette mountain, it doesn't matter. You can put that on any color and your black silhouette's gonna pop. But I didn't want to do that with this. I wanted to keep my mountain range really light color to give it that illusion of snow, maybe a little foggy. So with that, I was wanting to make sure I don't paint over the mountain line. sound like I said mountain lion. Mountain line. Mountain ridge. And now I'm doing the purple. So again, wet on wet. The more wet the paper is, and the more wet washed out the paint is, the easier and better it's going to blend. So if you struggle with the blend of sky, like if you're going from one color to the other, I recommend going super light on the wash color. So lots of water. I would almost say like 1 part paint to like 10 parts water. That's how washed out the color is on wet paper, and the colors will blend a lot better. So the other thing I'm doing now is I'm doing the snowy mountains. So I'm doing the purple, and the way I'm doing, how do I explain this? So I'm the white of the paper is going to be my snow. So you're going to be drawing kind of in reverse. So if you were, you know, when you were a kid and you drew a mountain with the snow, you kind of drew the snow, right? You drew the snow out with your pencil. But here, the absence of color is where your snow is going to be. So mountains have ridges, and they have, you know, depths and hollows and paint and trees. So I'm just kind of creating an illusion of the snow, and I don't know if you can quite see the effect yet. As I fill this in a little bit more, you'll be able to. I'm going to speed this up a little bit, and I know obviously if you're painting along, this might be a little bit difficult because I'm going to speed this up in time. But this was originally a 60-minute video, and I cut it down to 27.5 minutes. So basically it's cut down in half. So a lot of that's fast forwarding through things like this. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, one, it's pretty repetitive what I'm doing. So the beginning, I'm painting it a little bit in this regular speed, real-time speed, so you can see what I'm doing. And then I speed it up just so you can kind of get the bigger picture without having to watch the entire thing. It gets a little tedious. As you can see, I'm doing a really light wash on the purple here. I'm doing that on purpose. I'm adding a little bit more of the grays. This gives it kind of, you know, different light, different reflections there, if that makes sense. And I'm going really light on the color because I can add color to it later once I get it to where I want it to be. And this is the trees, so I'm literally using the side of my brush for the trees. You don't have to go one by one and paint these trees in. And as you can see, it actually looks pretty foggy, kind of snowy foggy with the way I did it with the side of the brush. And then I'm just doing the light gray here. So I just did these mountains really fast, and this gray part, you can see that is just kind of smearing the brush, but I was so happy with the way it turned out. I was like, oh, it looks so real. So sometimes that happens. I have favorite spots or areas of my painting. Here I'm doing clouds. So I'm doing a really light purple wash, and then I'm going to add kind of a reddish, orangish color to the bottom of the clouds. And the idea, I mean, you can see the bottom of the sky is pinkish. So the idea is that there is a sunrise, and the red from the sky is going to reflect onto the clouds. And I'm using my old towel, whatever you want to call it, to just lift some of the color up if I think there's too much. I do use that quite a bit when I'm painting. You just don't see it so much when I'm videoing because, you know, it's just one of those things. So you don't see me cleaning my brush and all those little things, all those fill-in things I edit out because I know it's not interesting to watch. And here I'm doing kind of more of a puffy cloud, and I'm going to add the reds to the bottom, and I want to do it when it's wet so that it naturally blends. And as you can see, the red's just naturally blending into the purple. You don't have to do any blending yourself. It does it for you, and then people will see it and they're like, oh my gosh, look how well you blended. And you're gonna be like, I know, right? I totally spent so much time blending. Meanwhile, you didn't. And then I'm going back and adding a little bit more of the darker to give it depth, to make it look poofy, extra poofy. And you know, I didn't notice that I hold my brush like this. I was watching this and looking at my hand and the way I hold my brush and the way I was holding my pencil when I was sketching earlier. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I hold my brush and my pencil when I'm drawing in the middle of the brush or the pencil. I just thought that was interesting. So maybe that's a technique. Maybe try holding your brush different if you're not happy with the way things are turning out. I know that I hold it like this because I do end up getting a really light touch from the brush. I don't, as you can see, it barely just glides across the paper. So I don't know. Try it. Maybe that's a trick that you've been needing, or it's going to totally mess up your painting and you're going to be very unhappy with me. Hopefully it's not the latter. So I am now, at this point, I like my other clouds better, and I was trying to make these clouds kind of look like those clouds, and then it just wasn't happening, and I just said, forget it. I'm going to go back to my favorite mountain. And look, I don't know, I just think it looks so cool and shadowy here. And I'm adding a little bit more darkness because I was looking at this and I'm like, oh, it's such a cool effect. Let me make it a little bit more dimensional. And I was just really liking the way this turned out. So I just wanted to add a little bit more to one side. And then here I'm adding trees. So the trees are the same way. I'm using the tip of the mop brush. You could use a round brush too. I'm using a mop brush. I think I pretty much use the same thing throughout the whole painting. And it's a very blended forest because the idea is I want it to look like it was snowy, foggy. In order to create that effect, you want it to blend in together a little bit. And if you notice on mountains, it's not always fully covered in trees. It's not always fully covered in snow. It depends on the angle of the mountain, if there's more rock, if there's more forest. So to create that organic look, you don't want to fill up your whole mountain with snow or fill it up with forest, pick spots here and there. And, that'll make it look more realistic, in my opinion. So here I'm going to be adding a tree, and this is going to be a foreground tree, and basically this is definitely one you want to kind of take your time with because there are gaps in the branches, and those gaps are going to be essentially your snow. So again, it's the same thing as the mountain. The absence of paint is going to represent the snow because you're using the white of the paper to create that effect. And we're going to do that with the fence post at the end of the painting. So like I said, this is in the water series. We're doing snow. So we're doing your snow-covered mountain. You're going to do your snow-covered forest and trees, and we're using the gaps in the paper in the paint to create that effect. And the same thing with the fence post. So a couple different ways to show the snow, and as you can see, I'm not drawing or painting a trunk all the way through. There's definitely some gaps in the paint where you can see the paper below it, and that's to create that snow effect. And as I get closer to the bottom of the tree, I'm going to go a little bit darker on the colors because it's getting denser the more bottom of the tree you get, and it's also going to be less exposed to the snow, so essentially less snow covered. So I am just doing kind of and of course fuller, more brushes. What am I trying to say? Branches at the bottom. My goodness. And I have never lived in snow country, so I'm just pretending I know what I'm talking about. But I've seen snow-covered trees, so I know. I've seen snow-covered trees. I've been in the snow. I snowboard. I actually want to start skiing, but I've snowboard. Always snowboarded. I don't know how to ski. I do want to learn how to ski. I hear that skiing harder than snowboarding. I've heard that snowboarding is harder, but I feel like skiing would be harder because you have poles in your hands as well as 2 sticks on your feet, whereas snowboarding you're only controlling one thing, so less to think about. Kind of like rubbing your belly and patting your head. That's what skiing looks like to me. Like I wouldn't be very good at that. Anyways, what does that have to do with this? Nothing. We are going to be doing a blend of purples and blue. This is a second tree, can you tell? You're like, what are you doing? What happened to the tutorial? This is why I call myself the not so serious watercolor artist. So I'm doing blues at the bottom. Why am I doing blues? I don't remember why I'm doing blues. I think I'm just trying to mix it up. I'm trying to mix it up and make it look more like snow. So I'm adding more blues. And what I'm going to add the forest. So these two trees are in the foreground. And then I'm going to have the forest, you know, trees in the middle ground, I guess you could say, because the background would be the mountains. So mid-ground, I'm sure there's a word for it, and it's probably one everybody in the world knows except for me. But I'm doing the trees here, oh, my throat just got really dry. Just lines straight up and down. And then the same effect with the trees here. Excuse me. I had a cold last week, and I'm still in that stage of losing my voice. I'm drinking my water. I apologize. So I'm just adding my trees here. As you can see, I'm doing the same kind of effect here. I had to take a break from recording for a second so I can drink some water. I apologize. I should have done that sooner because I doubt hearing me choke on my own breath was fun to hear. But anyways, I'm better now. So I'm now adding a little bit, not as big as a foreground tree, but some bigger ones. And I'm not filling it completely up because I want it to look like it has snow on it. I'm just going to be doing this, and it gets tedious to watch, and I am speeding this up a bit so that you guys aren't stuck listening to or watching me do the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm just kind of zigzagging my paint. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I'm just being kind of free with my paintbrush, and as you can see, you have the gaps in the paint, and it's supposed to look like snow. Hopefully it does, and I'm doing that here too. And just a little bit here, the forest is kind of thicker towards the right than it is on the left, so I'm not going to be putting as much here, but I am adding a few trees, and then I'm also going to be adding some blues and stuff to make it look like, well, not make it look, to help add the effect of the snow, if that makes sense. It's probably easier to watch what I'm doing instead of listening to what I'm doing. So here is a lightish blue. I'm using a turquoise, and I'm just drawing some, I guess it would be like just the snow, not a snow pile, but just to kind of show, you know, snow has ridges and stuff where it falls and you can see the shadows. So it's bluish because it's, of course, snow. It's icy, right? So I'm doing that little blue there just to show the slope of the hill, give it that effect. I'm going to add a little bit more and pretty much just do this over and over again. Some parts are going to be darker than the others. It's going to show more depth. I'm going to keep going until I get it to the point that I like it. And as you can see, it's just going back and forth, layering upon layering until I get to the point that I like. Is it snowing where you are? It is February right now. Valentine's is next week. We are, oh my gosh, as many of you know, I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we are in the midst of chaos here. The Phoenix Open is this week, which is a huge event here in Scottsdale every year. I think it's pretty much our biggest event by far in Scottsdale, and it happens to be about a mile south of me. And of course, the Super Bowl is here this week. Same weekend. It's insanity out there. It is not snowing, and it is spectacularly beautiful weather. I apologize if you're dealing with crappy weather because I just rubbed it in, but it's 70 degrees, sunshine, beautiful. I don't blame people for wanting to be here, but as a resident, we're all kind of like, let's have our state back. So I did pick up a little bit of that blue with my cloth because I thought it was too dark. Here it's going to be kind of a snow bank. That's what I'm going for here. So it's going to be much more darker than the rest of the snow because I do want to create that bank appearance. So anyways, is it snowing where you are? Do you get snow like this? I've never lived in the snow, so I would be kind of lost if I had to live in it. I wouldn't know what to do. I was watching a video today of cars sliding on black ice. I know it's kind of morbid, but I like that stuff. And I was thinking, I'm like, that looks like a regular road. I would have absolutely no clue what to do. I wouldn't know how to recognize it. I wouldn't know what was happening. This is why my husband, who's born in Germany, grew up in Chicago, this is why when we're in the snow, he drives. Now, if you want to drive in traffic at 80 miles an hour, that would be me, because I'm from Los Angeles. So this video, my gosh, I filmed this a few weeks ago, and it was my every intention to get it out within a couple of days. And I was just having such technical difficulties with this for some reason. It wouldn't load. And I think a lot of the reasons because I didn't break it up into smaller videos like I normally do. And so my computer and it was just like, no, this is too much, too big of a file. And I kept rejecting it. I was trying to figure out how to get it to load without having to do this all over again. And then when it loaded, it came inside. It was just a big mess. So I finally got it loaded correctly onto my computer, a video, and I caught a cold from my kids. So although my cold, it fortunately was not very bad. I just had my right side of my face was just super stuffy. My right side of my throat was sore. My right nose was stuffy. Right side of my nose. It was weird. It's like the cold was on one side of my head. But I was so congested on that side, and I sounded very nasally, so I didn't think it was a good time to do the video and the voiceover. And as you can see, I'm still struggling a little bit when talking because now the weather is so dry. We have our humidifiers going in 3 different rooms, and it's still dry, which is not helping me because I'm still trying to recover from being congested. I'm adding the blues that sounds like a song. I'm adding the blues to the forest a little bit because blue and snow makes that appearance of cold. So how do you paint cold? That's how you paint cold. I think I lifted this color up at one point, which I did. I lifted it and kind of, it was less blue, and I regret that because I thought it was so pretty right there. But I did lift it up, as you can see in the top right corner. It's a little bit more the grayish blue. So now I'm doing the fence post, and the fence post, the trick to doing this is to not paint the whole fence post. I'm just doing one side, as you can see here with a real picture of a fence with the snow on it. The snow, which was on the other side of the picture, you can't see the whole fence, so that's what we're going. That's why I'm just kind of doing one side, basically the right side of the fence post. In this case, it was really the fence post. And that's why there's a gap now in the 2, what do you call that part? I know there's a name for it, I can't think of it, but you can see the gap. So it's supposed to make it look like there's snow there. Once I fill it in a little bit more, it'll look a little bit more like that, because then I'll add kind of a little other side to the fence. You'll see what I'm talking about once it's painted. But I leave the gaps because it's going to give that image of snow. This is one of those ones where I think when you're first seeing it painted, you're like, I don't see it, and then when it's done, you're like, oh, I see it. Okay, so if you're painting along, maybe just get to the end of this segment, watching the fence being completed, and then it'll make more sense, I think. And then you can then paint it yourself. So here I am. I'm going to fill it in a little bit, so now you can see what I'm talking about, where you can see the white of the paper being snow, right? Is that right? That's the effect I'm going for. So hopefully that's what happened. But yeah, now you can see, look at the other side of the fence post and give it that effect of snow on the fence. And then I'm going to add, once I get to this point, I want, I'll add shadow from the fence, and it's just, I love adding the shadow. It was such an easy thing to do, and it just really pulled it all together, in my opinion. And the reason I have a little bit of the darkness at the bottom of the fence post is because, you know, there's snow piled up, so you want to show that a little bit. So I'm just going in and finalizing this to make it seem, you know, like there's been snow sitting on the fence. And then once I get to this point that I want, then I'm going to go ahead and add these shadows. And the shadow is going to be Basically it's kind of the snow bluish color that you can see there. It's going to be almost the same, but a little bit more on the grayish side because it is a shadow. It's not snow, but it is in the snow, so that's why it has a little bit of bluish. I don't know if any of that made sense. It sounded more like babbling to me. I did not sleep at all last night. I made the mistake of having a lot of coffee yesterday. For some reason, I was just on a coffee kick, and it just completely messed with my system, and I was up half the night, and now I'm delirious. So I don't know what I'm saying. Hopefully this makes sense. But here you see when I'm adding, it's like I said, bluish gray. It doesn't have to be, in fact, you don't really want it to be as perfectly straight as the fence because the snow is not perfectly straight. So you're thinking of this fence supposed is casting a shadow onto the snow, which is fluffy and it's got mounds and stuff. So you don't want it to have this perfect fence. It's a loose shadow, just like when you see a shadow of yourself. It doesn't reflect your body perfectly. And then I'm just adding this other final slope around the fence and a little bit more of this really light blue to the slope as well, just to show a little bit of the snow depth and stuff. And I'm just going to go in and just add a couple of these final touches here and there of where I just felt like it was missing. And I purposely wanted this bottom right side of my painting to be pretty bare. I was wanting that effect. I wanted the painting to be in the top quadrant, kind of top thirds, I guess, of the painting, and just added a little bit to the bottom right just to obviously make it look like a complete painting, but not really taking focus away from the painting itself. And then the fence is going obviously into and around the slope. And I'm adding a little bit more shadow here and there just to give it that final detail that I think just pulls it all together perfectly, if that makes sense. And I just love these colors. I think the blues and the purples and the pinks, they all come together. They complement each other. It really creates that winter wonderland escape. And it looks like I finished this just in time for me to start losing my voice again. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this process. Hopefully you got some ideas with snow. Let me know if you gave this a try. If you like this speed where I'm fast forwarding through things or speeding up, let me know. So don't forget to like and subscribe.